bail wouldn't be required for a large number of criminals if this goes through. And he's going to explain how this bill would operate and why it's being done this way. Stephen, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, you're running for Attorney General. You are the main alternative to Xavier Becerra, the only alternative.
We've got a 10-second delay. It's going to get very confusing.
Can you turn down your radio?
I hit it with my knee. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out what I was doing wrong here.
That's okay. Happens all the time. Most people don't know we're on a delay, so it's very common.
Sure.
Because sometimes I just randomly start shouting curses. So, and
well,
if there's
on bail reform, I think everyone in California ought to be shouting curses because these people in Sacramento take these issues over. They start putting these tags like reform, like you've got a special that you're getting on something, and when it's all said and done, all they create is absolute chaos out there. It never does what they say it's going to do, and bail reform is the perfect example of something that's going to end up disadvantaging defendants, believe it or not, and disadvantaging the public because it's going to put a whole bunch of people that judges and law enforcement and just the rank and file public would say we don't want on the street.
All right. Who would be eligible to get off without any bail?
Literally everybody. The problem with the bill is in eliminating cash bail, it's going to cost, well, L.A. County, it'll probably cost them, maybe as much as $1 billion a year to be able to set the system up so that they can evaluate, run through the checklist. It means the person who would normally have gone down and cash bailed out of jail will sit there in jail while the bureaucrats are trying to, check all the marks when they get to.
So they're going to evaluate every single defendant on a case-by-case basis with some criteria,
defendant.
Some formula as to whether that you can trust them or not to let them go without bail.
Just like happened in New Mexico the other day, where they are letting these terrorists out of jail because the judge says, well, you didn't prove that they were a danger to society. It's maddening. It's crazy.
And we'll get to that story in a little bit. So somebody commits a crime and they get arraigned and they're given a court date to come back to face justice, and they have to go through this procedure where the bureaucrats decide whether you need bail or not, and if you don't need bail, you just go home. But But if you're a really bad guy, they're still going to demand bail or not. If you're you've killed somebody, if you robbed somebody, you've sexually abused somebody.
Sure. Here's what will end up happening. The person will be arrested, taken down to the jail. They'll sit in jail because there won't be a bail schedule that they can then bail themselves out with. The bureaucrats will come into the jail. They will evaluate them based on a subjective checklist. The person will remain in jail until either the bureaucrats who have been given some sort of authority deem them eligible to be released, or they see a judge who then has to decide whether they're going to be released.
Well, they don't know these people.
Precisely.
So there's no way you can use a generic checklist of this arbitrary criteria to determine whether you trust these people or not. They've all been accused of crimes, many of them serious crimes. By its nature, you can't trust them. And the bail is there because then it's a penalty against them if they don't show up for their trial.
Well, better yet, most bail is guaranteed by family members and other people in the community who take it upon themselves to make sure that the defendant is going to show up. And the reason they do that...
Well, why would anyone show up?
Under this new system, nobody's going to show up. It's like, commit a crime, get out of jail free.
So the real intent of this is to stop sending people to jail.
Exactly.
Stop convicting them.
Well, you'll never get them to trial, so I guess you're exactly right. We'll never convict them.
Well, because, this is like the 6th major revision of judicial law in California, where the bottom line is there's far fewer people going to jail.
Right. It is a reward for committing crimes. And you know what happens when you reward someone for doing something? You get more of it. We're already seeing huge increases in California's crime rate. When we get bail reform, expect to see violent crime go up even faster.
And this is because what was the unfairness of the old system? Why does this have to be addressed? What was the problem?
Inherently racist.
Well, what's racist? If people commit crimes, they get arrested. They're arrested because of their behavior, not their race. Their race.
Precisely. And, but what's happening in Sacramento is the whole idea of justice is being turned on its head. And you're exactly right. There have been numerous very substantive changes to our criminal justice system over the last 4 years, and this year it's even picking up steam. This bail reform is madness happening right around us.
Well, they're taking a wrecking ball to the whole system.
They absolutely are. And we're getting the corresponding result, and that is a rise in violent crime. And you can go look on the Attorney General's website to prove that.
All right, hold on. Can you hold on for another segment?
Sure.
Stephen Bailey, he's a retired judge who's running for state attorney general. He's the only choice against Xavier Becerra because it's top 2 now for the November elections. And the latest atrocity is they want to largely get rid of bail in California. I'm just completely baffled by all this. John and Ken Show. We're talking with Stephen Bailey, a retired judge who's running for state attorney general. He is up against Xavier Becerra, who's behind a tremendous amount of nonsense in this state. We're talking about this new bill that's getting through the legislature that would completely remake the bail system. In fact, it would be no bail for lots of criminals because it's unfair and it's racist. And people are too poor, they can't afford the bail, and they're not getting out of jail fast enough. Of course, if you don't have bail, then why wouldn't you just flee? We continue with Stephen Bailey here. You referenced this New Mexico case, and I don't know how many people are tracking this story. It's really bizarre. But out in New Mexico, they found a compound, and inside, I think they're using the word squalid. It's really disgusting and foul. And they found 11 kids living inside. And according to law enforcement in New Mexico, the children were being trained with weapons to become some kind of domestic terrorists. And then the judge in the case, Judge Sarah Backus, in New Mexico has this no bail law. Let the adults go without bail. Release them to house arrests. And everybody's in an uproar. People are so angry. There were so many threats against the judge that they had to close down the court for hours and hours yesterday. I guess this is what you think will be the result. If the judges have total discretion on bail, you're going to get all kinds of wacky decisions from some of these judges.
Well, if you have no discretion on bail and you can't set bail to keep someone in jail who deserves to be in jail because they're a threat to public safety, judges will now have no alternative but to let them out under the guise that somebody is going to supervise them. And in those types of situations, judges don't always make the right decision. But most judges are trying to do the right thing. And when they have someone that they believe is a threat to public safety, somebody that's robbed, raped, assaulted, used a gun, we don't want those people out on the street because, our life is in danger, our kids' lives, your life. And so we set bail to make sure that these people can't get out. I mean, there's a reason why bail is set high. It's not just because we think we pick a number out of the air. We set it high to keep the dangerous people in custody. And in New Mexico, the prosecutor couldn't show to the judge that these terrorists, alleged, were going to be an immediate danger to the public. And so she let him out. She probably had, I don't know this judge, but she probably felt she had no alternative. And that's what we're going to get in California with this bill. And by the way, the bill is currently in the Assembly Appropriations Committee, I believe, in the suspense file, but it's going to come out tomorrow. And the public, your listeners, can have a major impact. It's SB 10, and it's being carried by Senator Robert Hertzberg. And you can call, oppose the bill, tell them you don't want New Mexico brought to California.
Yeah, just so listeners know that in this New Mexico case, they have found the remains of a young boy in the compound. So some little boy died in there, and they think the adults provided the children with firearms training, speed-loading guns, taught them how to fire while in motion. There were rifles, handguns, ammunition, books on being effective in combat situations, building untraceable assault-style rifles. And the judge said, well, you didn't prove that there was any specific threat or plan, so she let the adults go without any bail, which is fine under the law there. And it's caused a firestorm back in New Mexico, and you're going to have bizarre cases like that here, I imagine.
You will. We're already getting those kinds of crazy cases. A guy was an accessory to murder, OR'd, under the push to, let people out of jail without bail. The system is going crazy, and our lives are now being put in danger.
All right. Listen, thank you for coming on with us. We'll talk with you again. Stephen Bailey, he's running for state attorney general against Xavier Becerra, retired judge.